Hey, good morning. God's blessings to you. We are continuing in John 11. So Lazarus has died, and then Jesus loves Mary and Martha so much that he delays. He waits. And oh boy, is what Jesus has in store for them worth waiting for. And that's the incredible promise that Jesus has for you. He is always worth waiting for, and what he brings is always good. And the waiting itself is also good. That's good because it strengthens our faith. Now, we're going to see an example today with Martha of somebody who has faith, but she doesn't quite understand what's going on. And there's a lot of nuance to this story, a lot of details you could read into. Part of the challenge, and this is always a fun challenge, is which details should we read into and which ones are just surface level. He means what he says it says. That's the fun in John. So let's start then in verse 17. Now, when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now, I've heard a ton of stuff about this over the years. People want to make a lot about the 4 days. Apparently, there's some Jewish myth that people had that the soul would leave the body after 3 days or by the fourth day. I don't know. I don't know how much stock to put into that. All I'm going to say here is two things with this detail. First of all, it's 1 day longer than Jesus was in the tomb. And 3 days is long enough. If Jesus had all of a sudden got out of the tomb right away, about an hour later, it wouldn't have been that impressive. And what I mean by that, of course it would have been impressive, but people would have from the beginning thought, well, that's a conspiracy. He didn't really die. But you leave a man in the tomb for 3 days, all of a sudden, there's no doubt that he's dead. Now, what's going on here with Lazarus is it's 4 days. So it's 1 day more than Jesus was in the tomb. And I think this is a message of hope for Christians that we're going to be in the tomb longer, a lot longer than Jesus was. It's going to be a lot longer than 3 days, 4 days even. It's going to be for years, maybe even thousands of years until Jesus comes back. The point is, it doesn't matter because Jesus is still able to raise us from the dead. And as he says here, even though we die, we never really die. And that's the question. When the rubber hits the road, do you actually believe this? Do you have an existential dread, a fear of death, or do you believe what Jesus has to say here in John 11? Now, I know I'm asking you a lot because this is where everything in life comes together. What do you actually think about death? And this is the question he's going to ask Martha. Now, the second thing to say about this 4 days is Jesus has waited an ample period of time. No doubt about it. Lazarus is dead, and Mary and Martha have begun the mourning process, and that's when Jesus shows up. So at every stage in the mourning process, Jesus is there for us. The challenge is we can't always see him, just like they could not see him for the first 4 days. That doesn't mean that Jesus doesn't care. It just means he is hiding himself for a purpose, to strengthen our faith. Okay, verse 18. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off. And we're going to see this in chapter 12, which is right after chapter 11 here. Mary is going to anoint Jesus' feet, which was alluded to at the beginning of chapter 11. And then after that, we get Palm Sunday. So the geography is actually pretty important. It's so close that Jesus is able to hang out in Bethany right before he enters Jerusalem on a donkey. 19. And many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. This raises lots of questions. They're pretty close to Jerusalem, but we're told many of the Jews. Now, we've talked about this term, the Jews, quite a bit in the Gospel of John. He uses it far more than Matthew, Mark, and Luke do. He uses it 70 times in his Gospel, and usually it's a reference to the Jewish leaders. Here it's a little bit unclear. Is it just ethnic Jews, or is it many of the Jewish leaders themselves? And that's the way I'm going to lean towards, that these are really important people who have come out to Lazarus's funeral to mourn and to comfort Mary and Martha. And the reason why this is compelling is because now Jesus is going to come and raise somebody from the dead in front of all of these important Jewish leaders. And we know that word quickly gets back to the Sanhedrin, to the high priests. At the end of chapter 11 here, we're going to get Caiaphas saying, a wonderful thing, which he has no idea how truly wonderful it actually is. But I think what this reveals is that Lazarus is somebody. Like, he's an important guy. I don't exactly know what his role is. Perhaps he is on the Sanhedrin or something like that. He is an important Jewish ruler, is what it seems to indicate here, that so many people would show up when he died. And so this just thickens the drama when Jesus is going to raise him from the dead. Very, very, very public thing. Now, I highlighted Mary and Martha's name here, and they go together as a pair. We're used to them together as a pair from Luke's gospel when Martha's busy with working and Mary is sitting at the feet of Jesus. Interestingly, and John does this on purpose, I'm convinced, he mentions their names both 8 times in chapter 11. In the number 8, that's the eternal number. That's the number of the resurrection. Once you break the cycle of 7 days, then you enter into eternity. So maybe there's something there, maybe there's not, but John's very intentional with his numbers. Verse 20, so when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him. But Mary remained seated in the house. And so what this is going to do is now we're going to be able to see distinct interactions that Jesus has with Martha and then later with Mary. So we'll bring that up next week. How does Mary react to Jesus' words? But first we get Martha's individual reaction here. Verse 21, Martha said to Jesus, Lord, and I want to take this actually as sir, so like landlord, more like that. So in Greek, the word Kyrie, yeah, it can mean Lord as in the God, that's true, but it can also just mean sir, like a term of respect. We don't have to read too much into it, but based on what she's going to say later, I think this is more of a term of endearment. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Okay. Seems to be true. Verse 22, but even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. Now, this is all true on the surface, so I don't want to disparage Martha too much, but just contrast this to what Thomas will later confess in the resurrection in chapter 20. He will look at Jesus and he will say, my Lord and my God. And so Thomas's confession is that Jesus Christ is God. What is Martha saying here? She's saying whatever you ask from God, God will give you. Now, is she making a distinction between Jesus and God? I don't know. But if she is, she's not fully grasping the situation here. Now, it's true. Often in the New Testament, there is a distinction made between the Father and the Son. That's true. So if we talk about God and we're just referencing one person of the Trinity, most of the time it's referring to the Father. Now, there are exceptions, like with Thomas in chapter 20 when he calls Jesus my Lord and my God. That's only referring to one person of the Trinity, the Son. That's true. I think Martha has faith. I really do. But she doesn't fully comprehend what's going on yet. And I don't blame her. The disciples don't either. How could you before the crucifixion and the resurrection? None of this makes sense yet. Verse 23, Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Now, a couple ways to take this. Certainly in the general resurrection at the end of the age, that's true. But clearly Jesus means he's going to resurrect him right now. Verse 24, Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Again, so she's got faith. Verse 25, Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. So we've had several of these I am statements now from Jesus. I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the good shepherd. I am the door. Now we get I am the resurrection and the life. Now, the life is going to show up later in John 14. And Jesus will say, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So interesting there, life is repeated. So leave no doubt about it. Jesus is the life. He says it here. He says it in John 14. But he also says that he is the resurrection. And this is a really concrete thing. And Martha's about to come to grips with it. He means he's going to raise Lazarus from the dead right now. He's got that power. Of course, he will do it on the last day. And that's what we have to look forward to. And that's the question for you. Do you actually believe this? Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. We worship the God of the living. Incredible comfort for Christians that even though we die, well, we're with Christ the entire time. Verse 26, and everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Whoa, look at that. Believes in me. Christians, you're never going to die. You're never going to face that death, that separation from God. That's what death is. Never going to happen to us. This is the question. Do you believe this? That's the question. Martha, do you believe this? Now, her answer is interesting. Verse 27, she said to him, "Yes, Lord. I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world." Okay, that's a good confession. It really is. There's nothing wrong with what she says. What I want you to notice is that she doesn't really answer the question. Jesus is asking her, do you believe this, that you shall never die? And there's some dissonance probably going on here because her brother Lazarus has died. And now she's wondering, okay, what does he mean by this? And clearly he means he's going to raise Lazarus from the dead right then and there. And Martha's struggling to understand what happened. So she says, well, yeah, of course I believe you're the Christ. This is the question for you. Okay, do you believe in the Christ? Great. Follow-up question, do you believe in all the benefits that he promises he gives us, like forgiveness, like resurrection from the dead? And these are fundamental Christian truths, which we have to confess. So you can't just say, I believe in Jesus, but I don't really think we're all going to be raised from the dead. That's missing the whole core of what Christianity is. So that's the challenge. And yeah, it's tough because you can't see it, just like Martha couldn't see it right then and there. But this is what faith does. It grasps what Jesus is really saying to us. Incredible promise. The question is, do you believe it? All right, well, we'll continue with the story, and we'll look at how Mary next week responds to what Jesus has to say. But until then, hope to see you soon. God's blessings to you. Thanks.